thank you to all of you who've come to this important and celebratory press conference. My name is Lori Bunton, and I've had the honor to be co-president of the ERA-NC Alliance for 2 years. Now with me is my co-president, Jimmy Cochran-Pratt, Danielle Williams from Winston Strawn Law Firm in Charlotte, Senator Natalie Murdoch, and Julie Von Hafen. And each person will speak for a few moments, and then we'll take questions. Allow me to frame why we are here. In 1787, our country created the U.S. Constitution. At that time, the founders, white men and property owners, deliberately excluded 2 groups of residents of those 13 colonies, women and enslaved African Americans. The founders also knew that the Constitution would need to be amended over time, and they created the process for amending the Constitution, known as Article 5. Now, Article 5 is simple and perhaps a bit vague, but basically it gives the powers to Congress to introduce and approve amendments by a 2/3 vote, and then to send those amendments to the states to ratify with a 3/4 vote. That's it. There was no thought to time limits or addendums or any additional whereas that a congressional body might add. And here we are, 243 years later. Only a handful of amendments have been added in the last 240 years. The last amendment was added more than 200 years after originally proposed. And one thing the Constitution aspired to was that each citizen of this great country should have equality under the law. They rectified the problem for African American men with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Women finally won the right to vote with the 19th Amendment, though in reality it took another 40 to 50 years for women of color to access the ballot. But women had no full legal protection in the U.S. Constitution until today, January 27th, 2022. The progress that many claim that women have made in the last century has just been due to a patchwork of laws, regulations that are easy to upend or not renew, depending on how hostile our legislators are to women's rights. But that's over. The Equal Rights Amendment is concise. Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Now I'd like to introduce Jimmy Cochran-Pratt.
Thank you, Lori. If this country wants to be seen by the world as a democracy to model, we must finally enshrine women's legal equality in the document, the U.S. Constitution, that our grandparents, parents, children have defended in wars and in the courts. Today, January 27th, marks 2 years since Virginia, the required 38th state to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment as the 28th Amendment goes into effect. The boxes here on each side represent 45,000 pages of North Carolina laws and statutes and regulations that may violate the amendment by treating women and men differently in North Carolina. The smaller stack here, the smaller stack, that's 2,000 pages that do meet the requirements of the Equal Rights Amendment. You can tell by these boxes that we have a lot of work to do. We are here today along with representatives of our partner organizations to try to gain the attention of citizens and legislators in North Carolina General Assembly who seem to think that 4.2 million women in North Carolina really don't need or want full equality. There's a new Constitution, and it includes the 28th Amendment. And on the back of the new Constitution is, I want to see America be what she says she is in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. America, be what you proclaim to be. That's Polly Murray, who is a Durham resident. And now I'd like to introduce Attorney Danielle Williams, Managing Partner of Winston Strawn in Charlotte, to explain the gender-biased North Carolina laws and how they were discovered. Danielle?
Thank you, Jimmy. Good morning, I'm Danielle Williams. I'm delighted to be here. I am born, raised, and educated in North Carolina, and it is such a pleasure to be here to celebrate the Equal Rights Amendment, which is now the law of the land. Winston & Strawn has been a partner with ERA-NC Alliance for years. And it was clear when Virginia ratified the ERA that the 2-year grace period was triggered. And that was going to give North Carolina the opportunity to review and analyze its own laws and revise them to be in compliance with what is now the law of the land. ERA-NC Alliance called Winston & Strawn and asked, how do we do that? Winston & Strawn had one answer. We will help you. We will be your partner. We will start this with you, and we will see it to the end. What we have done so far is we have gotten together 70 attorneys at Winston & Strawn who have volunteered to review all 47,000 pages of our general statutes. There are 168 chapters. And of those 168 chapters, only 2,000 pages do not need to be addressed in light of the ERA. We have had those 70 attorneys review the 45,000 pages 3 times, and have identified where the revisions need to be made. Our next step is to invite subject matter experts in particular areas of the law that are covered by our general statutes to partner with us to make sure further revisions are proper. And then we will work with the North Carolina, all the North Carolina agencies to put together the proper information so that we can submit it to the legislature for amendment. And so we look forward to working with the North Carolina Bar Association, to continue to work with ERA-NC Alliance, to work with all of our legislatures to get the necessary amendments into the legislature, and then passage so that we can move forward with the Equal Rights Amendment and compliance with it in the state of North Carolina. So we are proud to be here. We are proud to be working. We are proud to donate our time and our expertise for ERA-NC Alliance, for the citizens of North Carolina, and for the state of North Carolina. We will see this to the end. Thank you, and I am also delighted to hand the podium over to our state representatives, first Senator Murdoch and second Representative Von Hafen. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that summary, and we're just so grateful that we have brilliant legal minds who have volunteered to take the time to go through these 47,000 statutes that we have here in North Carolina to tell us, quite frankly, what we already knew, that we would have a lot of work to do so that we can comply with the ERA, but now we physically can show that. 2 years ago today, we saw Virginia ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. Virginia is the 38th state to affirm the quality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Women marchers, organizers, and elected leaders fought for more than 50 years to meet the constitutional requirements outlined in Article 5 to ratify the 28th Amendment. Sadly, the former president instructed the National Archives not to publish the ERA Amendment. Critics of the ERA argue that 70s nostalgia leads the movement of women's liberation. They point to the number of women serving in office and argue women will power to amend laws. In the same breath, they say that democracy works slowly and that women should be patient and satisfied with the results. The next generation will be better, they say. These so-called experts vigorously contend that ratifying the Constitution to ensure women are guaranteed equal protection is constitutional abuse. These criticisms hold no merit. Today, in 2022, disparities among women, and especially women of color, remain Myself, Representative Von Hafen, and so many of my colleagues have stood in this very room to fight for equal pay for equal work, the Healthy Pregnancy Act, Black maternal health, and better paid leave policies for women that must leave the workforce to take care of their family and children. We continue to file this legislation, which has yet to receive any hearings, by the way, because these disparities remain prevalent. So here we are. President Biden can overturn the instructions of the former president not to publish the ERA and get the ball rolling for the 28th Amendment to become the law of the land. He can make sure the young women starting her career is afforded with the same opportunities as those men that are in those classes with them. Biden can prevent 5.2 million women in North Carolina and 166 million women in the United States from experiencing the feedback loop of trauma that continues to transpire because our ambiguous laws continue to harm women. I'm often asked why. Why are you still pushing for the ERA today? This is why. These reams of papers that show just how many laws are made on the books specifying your sex physically demonstrate that the time to acknowledge the ERA ratification is now, is today. Women won't wait any longer for full protection and equal representation in the United States Constitution. As a lawmaker and a woman, I will not settle for what the great Shirley Chisholm described as countless ambiguities and inconsistencies in our legal system that exclude women till this day. We have to ratify the 28th Amendment to ensure that women's liberation and equal protection are guaranteed, or else the cycle of women being oppressed will never end. Now you will hear remarks from my colleague, Representative Julie Von Hafen, out of Wake County.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Representative Julie Von Hafen. I represent District 36 here in Wake County, and I'm proud to be the lead sponsor of House Bill 8 to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I'm so proud to be here today with these amazing advocates who have been working for years for this day to speak out about why it's important that we finalize the ratification of this important amendment. As other people have said, the ERA was passed by Congress in 1972, and in 2020, 2 years ago today, Virginia became the 38th and final state to ratify the ERA, fulfilling all the constitutional requirements set forth in Article 5. Today is the day the ERA should go into effect across the country, but despite meeting all the necessary requirements for ratification, the ERA has yet to be published in the Federal Register as the 28th Amendment. This is because of an Office of Legal Counsel opinion written by the Trump administration in January of 2020, which instructed the National Archivist, who's in charge of publishing ratified amendments, not to publish the ERA. The last 3 states to ratify, Virginia, Illinois, and Nevada, are attempting to sue the National Archivist for not publishing the amendment. Their case is currently pending before the U.S. Court of Appeals. But nevertheless, we, along with many constitutional scholars, believe the ERA is the 28th Amendment and is fully enforceable, even without publication. And despite ongoing litigation, we believe there are steps that can be taken to ensure ratification moves forward without delay. President Biden must instruct his Office of Legal Counsel to take up this case for publishing the ERA. The 166 million women living in the United States, including the 5.4 million North Carolinian women, deserve to celebrate their newly guaranteed right to equality. Anything short of ratification will not suffice. Only a fully ratified ERA will force states across this nation, including North Carolina, to begin reviewing their statutes, just like these, for gender bias and to change those statutes. We need to review all of these statutes for bias and to make sure that every North Carolinian has a fair shot at participating in society, regardless of gender. I want to make clear that these gender bias laws affect both men and women, not just women. But women have been fighting for the ERA for nearly 100 years. We were purposefully excluded from equal protections when the Constitution was first written, but we've come a long way since then. The Biden administration has an opportunity to play a part in affirming once and for all that women should be guaranteed equal rights. I'm so honored to stand here today with all these advocates for equality, but I'm even more proud to know that we've begun the review of the North Carolina statutes in preparation for ratification. But all of this work, all of these pages of review will count for nothing if our legislature is not forced to act and change the laws that enshrine gender bias in our state. The Biden administration must act within the full scope of their authority to undo the Trump administration's efforts to delay ratification. That's the only way we're going to make progress here in North Carolina, and it's the only way we can ensure gender equality across our country. Thanks so much.
On behalf of the ERA-NC Alliance and our legislators, thank you for attending. If there are any questions, we're happy to entertain them.
Yeah, please. Good morning. My name is Mario Alfaro from Enlace Latino. For the legislators, what is the plan? Did you start conversations with the Republican leaders, how you're going to do all this job? And this year is short session, so.
Well, we're lucky that the ERA bills that we filed in the House and the Senate, we don't have to refile them in the short session, so we still have the opportunity under our rules to take up those bills. So, of course, we'll always keep pushing to do that, as we have been since I've been here 3 years and much longer than that before. But I think right now, you know, we had Senator Murdoch and I had an op-ed in the Raleigh News and Observer and the Charlotte Observer yesterday, pushing for the Biden administration to publish the ratification of the ERA with the National Archives. And I think that's a really important step. And I think that, you know, we do have the 38 states that have already ratified. So North Carolina is kind of like frosting on the cake. You know, we already have the baked cake and it's done. But, you know, North Carolina was the last state in the country to ratify the Women's Right to Vote Amendment, and we don't want to be the last to ratify the ERA if it is going to go forward as it should today. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add that unfortunately, as it was with giving women the right to vote, I hate that my native state is slow to respond to these sorts of issues. So that's why today is so significant to states like us in North Carolina and so many other states across the South. I do believe it will take federal action to really force us to do the right thing, and so that will begin today. Those lawsuits will be filed very soon.
And I'll just add, we're not waiting. We're continuing our review. We've already spent nearly 900 hours reviewing the statutes, and we will continue to spend whatever time and resources we need to get a full and complete revision of the North Carolina general statutes. So when Senator Murdoch and Representative Von Hafen are ready, these documents will be ready for them.
Thank you.
I would just like to add one other thing, that there has only been one other state that has completed a review of this scope, and that is Arizona. That was done by all volunteers, volunteer attorneys, but all volunteers. Right now, Illinois is in the process of reviewing their statutes. Minnesota should be beginning. New Jersey actually reviewed back in the late 70s, early 80s. But Winston & Strawn has committed to working, and they're an international law firm, they've committed to working with other states to begin reviewing their laws, statutes, and regulations. So this process is ongoing. We anticipate there's going to be a lot more noise and potential lawsuits, of course, coming out because this is in effect. The ERA is ratified. It has been 2 years. So that is why we're here. Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending and for watching.